In this video, you will see the most terrible burial of a woman that everyone was afraid of. You will find out what the most alive mummy in the world looks like and what is the uniqueness of the Golden Boy mummy. And at the end of the video, I will show the strangest exhibits in the museum. Hi friend, you are on the KirTop channel. The most alive mummy in the world. This story began a little over 100 years ago. It happened in Italian Palermo in 1918. Rosalia Lombardo was born, and not having lived 1 week before her second birthday, the girl died of pneumonia. It is clear that the girl simply did not have time to become popular. Everything happened after death. The girl's father was heartbroken in connection with this. He decided to use the services of the best specialist of that time, Alfredo Salafia. The mummification specialist introduced a special composition of formalin, chlorine, alcohol, salicylic acid, glycerin, and zinc into the girl's arteries, which saved her circulatory system from decomposition. After this mummification process, the girl was placed in a small glass coffin, and to this day her body is kept in a small church in Palermo. This girl is 100 years old, but she looks like she is alive. Everyone who saw the mummified girl does not believe that she is not sleeping. Mummification helps the body to be stored for a long time. However, due to the natural decomposition process, the healthy and fresh appearance of the deceased will in any case change. It is impossible to carry out mummification in order to completely preserve the skin tone and eye color as they were in life. As they say, the impossible is possible. Either a miracle happened in our case, or the mummification specialist really had a great talent. And that's not all. Scientists who constantly monitor the girl's body fix weak electrical impulses sent by her brain with a duration of 33 and 12 seconds. Such impulses are characteristic of a living person, although the fact of the death of a girl has been confirmed more than once. Whatever it is, but the mystery of the most living mummy in the world is forcing tourists from all over the world to come to Sicily and personally see a little girl with a yellow bow on her head who looks like she is still alive. Giant sword in Japan. Japan is famous for its history, and especially the history of ancient swords, which were unusually large. In Tomio Maruyama burial mound, archaeologists found an iron sword dako 2.3 meters long. The dako blade got its name from its wavy, serpentine shape. Japanese archaeologists often found such swords in burial graves, and there are already more than 80 such finds. But this sword has its own uniqueness. It is the longest of all that has been preserved in its entirety. It was impossible to use such swords in battle, especially considering the average height of the Japanese. Most likely, the sword was really used only as a variety of ceremonies. The mirror and shields were used as a tool to protect the dead from evil spirits, and a giant sword could enhance such protection. In addition to the sword, a bronze mirror in the shape of a shield was found in the burial, although such mirrors were usually round in shape. Its dimensions were 64 by 31 centimeters, and its weight was almost 6 kilograms. Archaeologists have not yet noticed signs of looting, so they hope they can figure out who is in the closed coffin and who owns the grave goods. The approximate age of the burial is 710 AD. Burial with headless skeletons. At the archaeological site of Rabel Velké Lahimby in Slovakia, archaeologists have discovered a terrible find. 38 people were buried in one grave, but they were all without a head. The approximate age of the burial is 5000 BC. This site appears to have been the largest early Neolithic settlement in Central Europe. In addition to the burial, the researchers identified 313 houses, 80 of which were inhabited by people at the same time. They formally divided all the buildings into 3 villages. Scientists claim that about 600 people lived in this settlement. One of the villages was surrounded by double ditches, almost 1.5 kilometers long. In this moat, archaeologists found the remains of 38 people, including a child. The bones of the buried were mixed with each other, so archaeologists had to spend a lot of time to separate 38 characters from a huge pile of bones. Interestingly, archaeologists have already found decapitated skeletons in the Vrabel area, and then they concluded that there was a sacred meaning in such a burial. However, that burial was different from the new one. In the previous case, a separate grave was dug for each person, and in our case, the bodies of 38 people were thrown into one pit and lay at random. But a logical question arises: where are the heads? In some skeletons, the first cervical vertebra was found, which means it was not an execution and a sacrifice. The heads were removed systematically and neatly, if one can say so about a human head. And what about the story of the Netherlands, which rests underwater? Little Holland, underwater. Underwater archaeologists have finally managed to determine what kind of ship rests at a depth of 32 meters near the English coast. Until today, this ship has been listed everywhere as unknown ship sunk off Eastbourne. Now, after many years of research, it was possible to establish that this is Little Holland. This is a Dutch ship of the 17th century which was engaged in the transportation of marble, was built in 1656. In addition to its intended purpose, the ship participated in all major battles of the Second Anglo-Dutch War. The ship was discovered in 2019 and immediately the ship received the status of a super important find and was provided with the highest level of protection. Studying a 17th century ship allows you to look deep into the maritime history of that period. There were treasures on the ship which will be lifted ashore and, after all stages of study, sent to the museum. The history of shipbuilding in England and the Netherlands is very exciting. After all, these countries created the best ships of that era. In addition to some of the treasures on the ship were cannons, Italian marble, and Italian ceramics. Marble had to get to the Netherlands for the construction of prestigious houses. For some, it may not seem like a significant detail to find out the name of the ship, but in fact, this is the most important discovery. Thanks to the many historical records about this ship, historians already have all the information. In this way, it becomes much easier to understand who it belonged to, what it was used for, where it was going, and why it ended up at the bottom. The story of the ship is a real historical fact, but what about ancient Greek myths? Stash in the lost city of myths. It's nice when the ancient city of myths turns out to be a reality and really hides treasures. One of these cities was found by archaeologists in Greece and is called Shadows. Historians had information about this city only on the basis of myths. But if you believe the ancient Greek myths, then the Minotaur must be somewhere as well. Therefore, scientists were skeptical about the ancient Greek texts. During the excavations of the City of Shadows, researchers found several ancient caches with coins, and this no longer looks like a myth because the coins are real. An accidental discovery was made by local residents in 1984 when, while digging a well, they stumbled upon an ancient sarcophagus. While specialists in the study of official history arrived here, marauders had long known about this place, and partly the ancient city had already been plundered. Either the marauders were not persistent, or the loot was enough for them. The archaeologists still had enough material to further study the city. They found a large public building from the Roman period with complex stonework. During the study of this building, archaeologists found a cache with 18 silver and copper coins, and nearby in another cache there were 2,100 different coins. Their approximate age is 6th century AD. Near the city necropolis, a team of researchers unearthed a Roman burial with an underground burial chamber. Inside it, archaeologists found a 1st century BC coin minted in Corinth, a bronze coin from Athens of the classical period, a lamp depicting the god Ares, a glass incense burner, an urn, a bowl, and a lamp, and a child who was buried in the tomb. The most recent mention of the City of Shadows was in an ancient text by the geographer of the 2nd century AD Pausanias. He believed that the city was built by Trojan prisoners of war around 1100 BC. If there is a real story in the myths of ancient Greece, what about the sagas of the ancient Vikings? Keep watching. Viking Age Double Burial. A unique find was made by archaeologists in 1981 near the village of Gedrup, near the city of Roskilde in Denmark. The researchers found not just an unusual but a very strange burial by those standards. A woman and a man lay in the grave, but they were buried in completely different ways. The reconstructed burial is today considered the main attraction of the local museum in Roskilde. The photo shows how huge stones lie on the chest, left arm, and legs of a woman, and next to it lies a heavy tip of a spear 40 centimeters long. It is not always possible to determine the sex from the bones 100%, but in our case, archaeologists are sure. The pelvis of the skeleton is small, but experts are sure that the woman gave birth more than once. It is also clear from the skeleton that the woman is not young. The spear is too large to actually be used in combat, so it was more symbolic. But with stones, the story is more interesting. It is believed that huge stones were placed on a woman out of fear of her. People thought that in this way it would save them from the fact that a woman could wake up after death. There were issues with the man too. It can be seen that his neck was broken and his legs were tied, which means he was hanged. It's more like a criminal, but to put a criminal and a half-warrior woman in one grave, who would need it? There was an assumption that this was a servant of a woman before they did a DNA test of the buried. It turned out to be even more confusing. The woman and the man were relatives, mother and son. It turns out we have found the true cause of fear of this woman. They threw stones at her so that she could not get up from the grave and avenge the death of her son, and the heavy tip of the spear was most likely a witch's stick. You might think that this is complete nonsense, but there is an explanation and coincidence for this in an ancient saga written in the 13th century. The saga tells the story of the sorceress Katla and her son Odd. Odda was a criminal, but no one could injure or kill him, neither with a knife nor with an axe, because he was protected by the witchcraft of his mother. She hid her son at home and turned him into a dog or a pig, but another sorceress appeared who was able to expose them. As a result, the son was hanged right in front of the mother and the mother was stoned. But she managed to curse her killers. The coincidence is very interesting. Were archaeologists really able to find real evidence of the ancient saga? If myths and sagas can be real stories, what about the Golden Boy from Egypt? Magic protection of the Golden Boy. It seems to us that any find from ancient Egypt will immediately get to the scientists who study it, but this is not always the case. Our story began back in 1916 when archaeologists found a mummified golden boy in an ancient cemetery in the town of Nag el-Kasai in southern Egypt. The mummy was taken to the basement of the Egyptian Museum, and all this time no one touched it. And just the other day they decided to scan the boy. Why this was not done before is not clear. Perhaps it was simply not noticed. Although it is very difficult not to notice the mummy of a child completely covered in gold and jewelry. The very fact of such decoration tells us that the boy was not a mere mortal. To protect the mummy from destruction, scientists used computed tomography. So they managed to find out that the boy had magical protection. In the fabrics with which the boy was wrapped, scientists examined 49 amulets of various types. According to historians, these amulets not only helped to save the deceased in the afterlife, but also had the properties to resurrect the boy from the dead. These were amulets made in the form of the Eye of Horus, scarabs, the Knot of Isis. There was also an amulet Akhet in the form of the rising sun. Many of them are made of gold, and some of them are made of semi-precious stones, baked clay, or faience. In addition to the amulets, there was another peculiarity. The boy was buried in 2 coffins at once. There were Greek inscriptions on the outer sarcophagus. The boy was mummified according to the customs of that time. The internal organs were removed, and instead of the brain, there was resin. A golden mask was also seen on him. He was shod in white sandals and decorated with a fern garland, which was of great ritual significance. According to the Book of the Dead, the white sandals were meant for the boy to get out of the coffin. From the mysterious golden mummy of a teenager, let's move on to strange exhibits in museums. The strangest museum exhibits. The museum is the place where, in general, all the finds of archaeologists fall, where anyone can take a closer look at them. I will tell you about such exhibits more. The photo shows the upper body of an ancient Celt who was sacrificed almost 2,000 years ago. At the time of death, the guy was about 20 years old. They killed him rather harshly, although at that time such a death was a sign of special mercy. Before the sacrifice, his nipples were cut off, he was cut into pieces and burned. Another thing is interesting. The guy had very well groomed nails, which means that he was someone from the ruling elite. Severe Gauls thus sacrificed the leader when his term of office approached. And 20 years for the leader was considered the sunset of a career. This lamb on wheels is at least 150 years old. It is creepy not only by its appearance, but also by the legends that it has acquired during its stay in the museum. The staff of the Canadian Museum considers the lamb cursed and assures that they hear sounds at night, how his chariot creaks, and the watchmen go crazy with fear, turn on loud music so as not to hear how the lamb moves around the museum. Of course, this is most likely a local horror story, but this toy still looks creepy. And this is the real heart of a sheep, no longer a toy, it is completely studded with pins, nails, and needles, and this heart played a very important role. It protected its owner from enemies. To be honest, I don't quite understand how such a creepy, nasty piece of meat with pins can protect from enemies. Maybe it's because I'm not good at magic. This bone is considered ritual in Tibetan Buddhism. It's not as simple as you might think. This bone with a knob is capable of making an amazing sound, kui-ruru. This bone, like the previous amulet, is also capable of scaring away evil spirits. The material for its production is the human tibia bone. Buddhists believe that the bones of girls are better suited for this. Who are we to argue with Tibetan Buddhists? In order for the set to be complete, it is also necessary to have drums of 2 skulls. And at the end of the video, I would like to ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave your thumb up under the video, and write a kind comment. Thanks for your views. Bye, everyone.